Hey guys, so today I wanted to make a video to show you how to change the logic board, the motherboard, in the iPhone 6s. So a quick word about the logic board motherboard replacement. This will fix iCloud lock if you do have an iCloud locked phone. If you can find a motherboard that's available that does not have iCloud lock, that's the hard part sometimes, is finding motherboards that are available that are clean to activate. A number of things we need to watch is what carrier you're looking for, if the phone is clean to activate, if it has a clean serial number or IMEI number, and also if it's free of iCloud lock. Those are the three things that you need to look for. Also, memory size is built into the motherboard, so you need to check what memory size you need or want. So the first thing you want to do is power off your iPhone. Next, what we need to do is use a pentalobe screwdriver size 0, and we're going to need to remove these two screws in the bottom of the phone right here. So go ahead and remove those screws. Next, what you will need is a suction cup like this. So first of all, you want to do is push down on the screen right here. You want to stay just above the home button. If you go over the home button, it won't suction very well. So what we need to do is stick it down there, and then we need to pry up gently. Just pull up a little bit. And as you can see right above the headphone jack here, there's a little notch in the screen. If you can get in there with something, I'm just going to use a little pry tool like this. And you can just kind of slip in under there. At the same time, you're keeping tension on here with your finger. This particular phone has been apart before, I can tell, so it doesn't have much adhesive on here, because the iPhone 6s has adhesive strips on the inside right here, so it might come apart a little harder than what mine's showing. So you just want to keep working it along the edges. Don't go in very far. If you use a pry tool like this, just use it a little bit at a time. And then you can see this is starting to separate. So let's go ahead and remove our suction tool right now. Now we're ready to gently lift this up. All the way, don't lift it past the 90 degrees. If you do more than a 90 degrees, you can end up tearing these cables up here, and we don't want to do that. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to use a Phillips screwdriver size 000, and we're going to need to remove these 4 screws in this plate right here. So go ahead and remove those. Now that you've removed those screws, make sure you put them in the right order so you know how they go back together, because some of them are different sizes. Just pull this plate off of here, set it with your screws. Now next we're going to disconnect these connectors right here. We're going to do them in order, whichever one's on top. So the one that's furthest towards the bottom here, going to slip in here. I would recommend use something plastic or your fingernail or something. Don't use anything metal for this, because it could damage the connectors. So just go ahead and remove all 3 of those. They're kind of stacked in order like that, so you can see. And now that that's loose, you're free to take the screen off just like that, all the way. If this video was helpful to you so far, I would appreciate if you would give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. That would help me out a lot. I'll include links in the video description below the video for any tools that I'm going to be using on this repair today, or any parts that I'm going to be replacing. Anything that I think might be helpful to you, I'll include a link in the video description below the video, so check it out there. Now if you're changing the motherboard, the logic board, you also need to change the home button that it came with, the original one, if you buy another one. Otherwise your Touch ID won't work, because they're paired from the factory together. So when you get a new motherboard, you also have to change out this home button. So the first thing we want to do is remove this cover for the battery connector right here. So use the Phillips screwdriver and remove these 2 screws right here in this cover. Now that you've removed those screws, make sure to set them off to the side in the right order so you know how they go back, and then remove this cover right here and set it with your screws. Next, we're going to disconnect the battery connector right here. We're going to use something plastic or a fingernail or something that's not metallic, because we don't want any sparks. So we'll go ahead and disconnect that battery connector and get it out of the way. Now next, you will need to use a SIM eject tool and remove any SIM cards that you have in there. Next, what we're going to do is use a Phillips screwdriver size 000, and we're going to remove these 2 screws right here up by the rear camera. Make sure to take them apart in a way that you know how they go back together, because they're different size. Then you can use something like a plastic pry tool or your fingernail. Don't use anything metallic, and you can pry up carefully on this connector. Then this rear camera will pop up out of there. Set that with your screws. Next, we're going to use this plastic pry tool and remove this connector right here for the charging port. So pry that up. Now there's an antenna wire right here at the bottom, just above the loudspeaker. We're going to carefully pry that up with something. Next, we're going to need to remove this screw right here, and this screw, all these Phillips screws in here that you see. I think there's 9 of them. You want to take these all out and make sure to keep them in the right order so you know how they go back together. Then after you removed all those, if we tip the phone up here, you can see there's 3 more Phillips screws up here that we need to remove. So go ahead and remove those as well. Now that you've taken all those screws out, you can start removing some of these things. This shield here, I would recommend setting it off with the screws so you know where it goes. You can grab this one since it's loose. Then there's this one as well, and this little one, which was here by the rear camera. Next, we got one more Phillips screw right here to remove. Now next, right in here, we have a little hex head screw that Apple used just to make things interesting. I'm going to show you the little one I have out of my screwdriver set. It's a M2.5 it's called. That's the size of it. But I suspect if you don't have anything else, you could use like a needle nose pliers or something and really carefully remove that. It's really not in there that tight, because I can just take this thing and turn it right out by hand. So we need to go ahead and remove that next. Then one more thing is we need to disconnect this connector right here. So go ahead and disconnect that connector. So now we have one more thing to remove, and that is this little antenna wire right here. So go ahead and pop that off of there. Then what we're going to do is use our plastic pry tool, nothing metal for this. We're going to carefully pry up on the board, and you can pull this antenna wire loose out of the channels. Then the whole logic board is free to come out just like that. So to reinstall your logic board, grab your logic board. And what I would recommend is let's go ahead first and hook up this antenna wire right here. So just hook it up very carefully. You have to kind of push it down square to get it to snap on. Then what I would say is let's get it laid in the channel right here. Everywhere where these little metal parts are on the antenna wire, it has a spot for it to hook into. So now as you're laying this down, make sure that this antenna wire is out of the way. Also, as you're laying this down, there's a connector here that likes to get in the way. So we'll just carefully set this down in here. Make sure everything's sitting down as it should. Now the next thing is there's a channel right in here that this wire has to lay in, the antenna wire, so it doesn't get in the way of your SIM card here. And there's a little spot down in here that needs to lock in too. You can tell where the metal spot is just like it is on the antenna wires up here further. So get that all in place. Next you can go ahead and reconnect this connector right up here so it's not going to be a pain anymore for you. Next, to get the board secure, put this Phillips screw in here, this one up here, and that hex head one up there, that special hex head one. Put those into place. Next you want to grab these two shields and put them in here. This one first and then this one on top. And then go ahead and put all the screws in here, these 5, and also these 2 on the top part. Next you can grab this little part and set it in here and just put the screw in the top part right here for now. Leave this one out for now. Next you can set this little part in here that goes on here and here. Next you can go ahead and put that screw in, this screw in, and this screw in. Now next we're going to set the rear camera in. Just make sure that this gets lined up and so it goes into that screw hole right there once you put the rear camera in. So grab the rear camera, set it down in there. This is where you want to watch that a little bit. Get that little guy out of the way there. And see how you can see through the screw hole right there? That means it's lined up so you can see it's good. So go ahead and reconnect the rear camera by pressing down on that connector. And then put those 2 screws back in the rear camera. One more step, we need to reconnect this antenna wire right here. So go ahead and reconnect that, make sure that it's in its channel here once you're done. Go ahead and put your SIM card tray back in. Now to reassemble the LCD screen, let's grab it and tip it up here at a 90 degrees. Now you can see we have 3 different connectors here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the one that's on the bottom, snap it in right here where it goes. Now these should be able to just press in with a soft click. You should be able to feel them and hear them. So do the second one, then do the third one. And reconnect the battery connector. Press that down. Now before we put all our plates back on, we're going to test this phone by powering it on. You can see it's powering on okay. So you can see your touchscreen works, so you can go ahead and get out of that. Turn it back off. Now that we turned it back off, go ahead and get your screen back up at 90 degrees. Grab our little plate in here, set it on here, and then go ahead and put those 4 screws back in. So now that you got the 4 screws in this plate right here, grab your cover, set it down on top of there, and go ahead and put your 2 screws back in. What you can do is gently set your screen down. Then what we're going to do, I'm going to try to show you, is we need to get these tabs in up here first. Tip the screen up like this carefully, and we need to get the front started first, like that. And then we can start just pushing this down all the way. Make sure it's good all the way down. Then go ahead and put your 2 bottom screws back in. Now that you got your bottom screws back in, go ahead and power on your device. And again, make sure everything's working, and you're all set. Thanks for watching.